Hey y'all, it's Sarah, the wine-loving bookworm, back with another book and wine review for your Sunday night. I'm on time this week. Um, just to set the mood for this book, I'm going to read a quote that she starts off her book with that I thought was just really great, and it's from Teddy Roosevelt. It was delivered at the Sorbonne in Paris, France on April 23rd, 1910. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. That's my book for tonight. Okay, I just thought that was a great way to set the tone because that really sums up a lot of her book. But first, the wine. Okay, so I have absolutely no idea where I got this. It is a white Bordeaux, which I've actually not heard of. It's called Chateau Acker Perriot. This was all in French, so that made it very interesting. But it's 80% Sauvignon Blanc and 20% Semillon. I don't know exactly what that is. Semillon or Semillon? I don't know. It's made in stainless steel tanks, vibrant and aromatic, long on the palate, whatever that means, good with fish or white meat, and very refreshing. So, be the judge of that. Don't mind my ice in my glass. I didn't put it in enough time. Okay, so let's try it. Cheers! That's, I actually can feel it long on the palate. I don't know what it means. If that is what I'm feeling, that's exactly the perfect description, long on the palate. Just lingers. Lingers? Okay, let me try it one more time. I'm getting a heavy Sauvignon Blanc off it. It's good, but if you don't like Sauvignon Blanc, my mom doesn't like Sauvignon Blanc, you ain't gonna like this. This is very Sauvignon Blanc heavy. I'm not sure what Semillon is, but it's doing nothing to really cut that Sauvignon Blanc. So, I like it. White Bordeaux, who knew? Okay, so Daring Greatly by the author Brene Brown, self-help book, and about 250 pages. I mean, I feel like everybody's heard of this book, but maybe not. I keep hearing about it constantly, so it's for years now, so I'm like, I have to read this book. So a little bit about the author. She's a PhD in an LMSW, which is some kind of licensed therapist. I think it means licensed marriage social worker or something. She's a research professor at the University of Houston, Graduate College of Social Work. She did a 2010 TEDx talk that just went viral, and it's one of the most viewed TED Talk. And if you don't know what a TED Talk is, you're missing out, because I love TED Talks. Actually, let me keep that down here. But anyway, it was one of the most viewed. They're just little, simple 15 to 20 minute talks from an expert in their field. They're really fascinating. I listen to them all the time. So she studies vulnerability, courage, worthiness, and shame. And she's written several other books on similar topics. So the book, if I could describe it in one line, I would say breaking down the walls we build because of shame and guilt in order to achieve real human connection. Okay, I'm done. Bye. See you next week. Just kidding. So, vulnerability and shame resilience, like the ability to bounce back from being shamed or just, what other people think of you, how the level of how it affects you is really what she's studying. Vulnerability may sound like weakness when you hear it, but it's actually courage and strength. It's like continuing to put yourself out there, even though you're afraid of failure, even though you don't exactly know what you're doing, and just doing it again and again. And that is actually strength, because most people are too afraid of what everyone thinks about them, myself included, a lot of the time. So you're not able to really do that. And it's not hiding who you are, being authentic and standing up for yourself. Way easier said than done, right? And that's why she wrote a whole book about it, because you can say all these platitudes, but it's hard to really put those into your life. So some of my favorite parts, she said the 3 ways we shield ourselves, again, walls, how I think of it as walls: foreboding joy, which is such a great word. It's waiting for the other shoe to drop. I mean, don't we always do that when things are going right? We're like, oh crap, something's gonna happen. Something, instead of just enjoying that things are going all right. Foreboding joy. 2 is perfectionism. I mean, hello, I'm very guilty of that. Doing things perfectly, to try to avoid shame or guilt or whatever. And it's not achievable. Nobody can do everything perfect 100% of the time. And it's not to be confused with striving to be a better person or do things in better ways. It's just you can't be perfect and you can't expect that of yourself. And then the 3rd is numbing, which is trying to avoid the feelings of shame and guilt through however you do that, playing, Candy Crush for hours on end, surfing the internet, shopping, drinking, whatever. Numbing. So she goes into like a Viking and victim mentality. And she says most people see things just very black and white. Like you're weak or you're strong. You're winner or loser. You survive or you die. You kill or be killed. You're a leader or a follower. Success or failure. And a lot of times it's easier to see things as black and white and then how they really are, which is very gray. I mean, things are gray. And it's not strength to put other people down. That's actually weakness, But people get in this, especially high pressure jobs like doctors, lawyers like me, sales, you get into this like it's this or it's this mentality, and that's not true. Because you fail at something or you did something wrong is not it doesn't define you as a person. You just pick yourself up and you move on. She also said something interesting that's very often seen in the military, because you need your military fighters to be good fighters and they can't be emotional and break down. And she understands the role of that in military, but a lot of military people have a hard time, if they've been in war, coming back to regular, life, because they're used to that, and they have a hard time with it. And there's actually a group called Team Red, White, and Blue that tries to put civilians or former veterans with recently veterans, I don't know how you say it, people who have just come back, just to have some of that human connection. And when I read about them, I thought that was so cool that I went online and I signed up to be a volunteer. I don't have any military experience, but I was hoping maybe I could be used as a civilian and take them to their appointments, just go have coffee with them and talk to them and try to get them back into society in a good way. She also referenced serpentining, which is like, she described it as, they tell you to zigzag to avoid an alligator if you see an alligator. It's actually not true. Alligators don't have endurance. They can't run very fast on land for long periods of time. So it's better just to run in a straight line, but they tell you to zigzag. And she says that's the same thing when it comes to avoiding stuff in your life. Instead of just like facing up to it and dealing with it, you zigzag around it and you end up more exhausted than if you just dealt with it in the first hand. And that just rings very true to me. I spent a lot of my life doing things like that. I'm trying to do things differently now, but I did do that. Also being influenced by what people think of you and perceive you, like what's cool. And that's very much, in the younger, like the children. She made a thing about saying, she talked to kids about belonging versus fitting in. And the kids were very astute. They were like, well, fitting in is me being what you want me to be. Belonging is you accepting me for me. Like, dang, like these 16-year-old kids already nailing that. They know it, but they still do it, And again, what is cool? She was talking about kids walking around with hoodies on in 90-degree weather. So funny because everybody does that at my son's school, at my kid's school. It's like, what are you doing? It's hot. Why are you wearing a hoodie? One thing she also said was cruelty is cheap, easy, and chicken shit. You think you're big and bad by putting other people down and bullying people. Feels good for a moment, makes you feel better, but in the long run, it's a crappy way to live. And it's harder, but more fulfilling to just be real and just have that emotional connection with people. And one of the quotes was, don't try to win over the haters. You're not a jackass whisperer, which I thought was great. That's a great quote. Don't try to please everyone. Don't try to please these people that are just jerks. Like, move on. She talked about how to ignore a critic. And she said the 2 strategies are: 1, if they're not in the arena, like Teddy Roosevelt said, putting themselves out there fighting, in it, then you don't have anything to say about what I'm doing, putting myself out there. And 2, know whose opinion matters. It should be like 3 people whose opinion really matters to you. And she actually writes them down on a piece of paper and keeps it in her wallet, and that's it. There was a quote from, that's the wrong book. There's a quote from a middle schooler they said, what's the key to learning? And the girl said, there are times when you can ask questions or challenge ideas. But if you've got a teacher that doesn't like that, or the kids in the class make fun of people who do that, it's bad. I think most of us learn that it's best to just keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your grades high. That's so sad. I mean, this world is not about keeping your head down and your mouth shut. This is about living and embracing life. So it makes me so sad to hear that. And it actually changed, I think I'm a pretty good mom. I don't know. But I think I'm pretty open with my kid and allow him to be emotional. But I really don't want him to feel like that. I don't want him to feel like he has to be status quo. Nothing ever great came from status quo. And then she also talked about letting kids fight their own battle, not just about letting them deal with disappointment and adversity, but it teaches them about hope, which I'd never thought about before, because hope is a function of struggle. When you're struggling, you're hoping for the next best thing. And if we want kids to develop high levels of hopefulness, of course you do. You want your kid to be hopeful and optimistic. They have to go through a struggle sometimes. Hope for a better time, hope for a better person. I really liked the book. It wasn't, like I think I said last time, it wasn't meandering. It wasn't very new agey at all. And she's a doctorate. She knows what she's talking about. She does research and interviews people. She shows things in her own life that were different and how she changed through all this. A really good book. I actually want to read it again, just maybe not right away. Let it sink in for a little while and read it again. It's really, I think these are good principles to have to really live your best life. That sounds so stupid and cliche, but it's true. Okay, going a little over today. Take another sip of my weird French wine. Next week, Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is very topical because it's about a flu virus that decimates the world's population. So, we dodged that bullet. But this is what this book's about. And it got really great reviews and people are raving about it. So I decided to get it and pick it up. So Station 11, that's my book for next week. Thanks for joining me. I really think if you're at all interested in what I was explaining today, pick up this book. It's really good. It's really good. You're going to enjoy it. All right, guys. Take one more sip of my, basically a Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, it's good. I like that. I like Sauvignon Blancs, though. You don't, keep away from it. All right, guys, that's all for me. Have a fabulous week. Have a great Memorial Day. Thank a veteran, even though I know Memorial Day is for the ones that have died, right? And then Labor Day is oh God, I'm going to mess it up. Cut that. I don't have anybody to cut this. All right, guys, have a great Memorial Day. I will see you next week when I talk about Station 11. Cheers.